What's up guys, Asian here again with another build video. This time we're going to be going over the Stamina Sorcerer. This is a two-hand build versus a dual-wield build. Two-hander, the gap between the two-hander and the dual-wield weapons the gap is definitely closed a lot. You can pull some pretty good DPS with a two-hander. It is a little bit reliant on getting Dragonstar Arena a sharpened greatsword, but you can still pull good numbers with a just random sharpened greatsword or battle axe or maul. With all of our guide videos, we're going to be going over gear, we're going to be going over skills and CP, and we're going to finish off with a DPS Parse so you guys can get an idea of what the rotation looks like. Starting off with gear here, two-piece Veladreths, both divines, one medium, one heavy. With stamina characters, you're going to want to go 6-1 or 7-0, 6 being your medium armor, 7 being medium, 1 being heavy. The heavy armor just adds a little bit of health to give you some survivability, just because as a stamina character you won't have access to any sort of damage shields. 5-piece Two-Fang Snake, they should all be divines. My gear is not all divines, I have an infused belt and I'm missing the legs, so I'm using divines, Vicious Ophidians instead. But all 5 pieces should be Two-Fang Snake Divines. Jewelry should be VO. You can see here weapon damage enchants. I'm using the Two-Fanged Snake Necklace because I don't have the legs in Two-Fanged. Gonna want to use VO for that 3-piece bonus. Minor Slayer. There is a new set in the Halls of Fabrication. I believe it's called War Machine. You can use that as well. That is a stamina set that you can use jewelry on. Though, do keep in mind, gold Vicious Ophidian is easier to get than gold War Machine because VHOF is very difficult trial to clear. I have a Master's Greatsword. This comes from Veteran Dragonstar Arena. I have this basically, I got lucky enough to grab this. You get extra weapon damage and my cleave hits for extra damage, which is always nice to have. Then Maelstrom Bow, that's basically these two are basically endgame weapons. Sharpened Maelstrom Bow, that's pretty much best in slot for a two-hander stamina tune. For your ability bars, you're going to have Brawler. This is a morph of Cleave. If you're using, even if you're not using a DSA sharp greatsword, you still want to use Brawler. Wrecking Blow, this is our spammable up until the enemy gets to about 50% health. Hurricane for the buff. Executioner, this has become our spammable once we do get the enemy to 50% health. Bound Armaments. Flawless Dawnbreaker, you're not going to be using this ultimate, you just have this here for the extra weapon damage boost. Your back bar here. Crit Surge, this is gives you your major brutality and also heals you, improves your survivability by a ton. Poison Injection. Endless Hail for the VMA proc. Rearming Trap for Minor Force. Bound Armaments, you got a dual slot. And Ballista, this is going to be the ultimate that you're going to be using the most for your damage. Taking a look at champion points here. 75 points into Mooncalf, 75 into Tenacity. Don't bother wasting the extra 25 points for that 1% boost. Those points are best spent elsewhere. The reduced payoff as you get higher and higher in the passives is just not worth putting the 25 points here. 29 into Warlord for break free cost. 31 into Tumbling for dodge rolling. You can put points out of those and put them into Shadow War to reduce cost of blocking. Since you're a stamina tune, you're going to want to conserve your stamina as much as you can. And so in endgame content where you're going to be dodge rolling, breaking free, and blocking, putting points into these passives will help conserve your stamina for its actual use, which is DPSing the boss. For mages, nothing in the Apprentice. In the Adronac, I have 19 points into Physical Weapon Expert and 37 points into Master at Arms. In the Ritual, 40 into Thaumaturge, 40 into Precise Strikes, 25 into Piercing, 49 into Mighty. If you don't have, you can use a precise weapon, but you're going to need to put more points into piercing and maybe use Crags instead of Veladreths for your monster set. So do keep that in mind. Piercing, you're going to have to play it by ear and kind of see what your penetration is. With Two-Fanged Snake, Major Fracture, Sharpened Weapons, and Pierce 25 points into piercing, you're hitting pretty much 17k penetration, which is really close to the 18k penetration cap. So if you were to put more points into piercing right now, I would be over penetrating, which is basically means I'm losing DPS because I basically have too much penetration going on. For your warrior points, 64 into hardy, 64 into elemental defender. Make sure to put points into these two passives first. There's currently a bug, or perhaps it's an unintended feature, where if you don't put points into these two first, you don't get as high damage mitigation. 34 into thick skin to prevent some dot mitigation. The dots in endgame content can be pretty severe, so we want to mitigate that as best we can. 48 into ironclad to reduce damage from direct damage. Direct damage is basically any ability that deals all of its damage in one blow, which basically covers 90 to 95% of boss attacks in the game, so ironclad is a very powerful passive to have. And we have nothing in the Lord because we don't have damage shield, so we can't put anything in the Bastion. For this Parse, we'll be using Bi-Stat food, max health, max stamina. You can use Dubious Camoran Throne if you pair it with the Bone Pirate Tatters set from Blackheart Haven. The only limitation of that is you're losing out on some sustain with Vicious Ophidian. Well, I guess you're not really losing out on sustain with Vicious Ophidian so much since you won't get the 5-piece, but you might have. But basically, you're gonna have to give up either the Master's Great Sword, the Minor Slayer boost from Vicious Ophidian, or your monster set. Some combination of those three you're gonna have to give up, which to me is not really worth it on a two-handed build, because you have to give up your monster set and you have to give up your Master's Greatsword, and those two things, those add a lot of DPS to a two-handed build. So Bone Pirate Tatters and Dubious Camoran Throne I would not recommend for a two-hander build. You need the penetration from Two-Fanged Snake to hit the penetration cap, so definitely do not recommend Dubious Camoran Throne. I mean, you're just losing too much health, losing too much stamina. It's just not worth it. In terms of potions, I'll be using Essence of not Spell Power, Weapon Power. This is where I'm going to get my major Savagery buff since I'm not using Expert Hunter on any of my bars. These pots are pretty cheap to make, so that's why I'm able to use them during Parses versus Essence of Spell Power, which are definitely more expensive to use. Alright. So we're just going to go ahead and start the Parse here. So the Parse you see right now on my comment metrics and FTC comment meter, that's from a dual wield Parse, about 31k. So we're going to try to come as close as we can to that Parse. And we're going to start in 3, 2, and 1. you have it. That's the Parse with a two-hander, 27k. Definitely lower than a dual-wield Parse. Your dual-wield will still out-parse your two-hander in most cases. In all cases I've seen so far, the two-hander can do respectable DPS, but it still doesn't match dual-wield. Gonna go into combat metrics here to kind of review what we did. Combat metrics is very useful because it helps you figure out where DPS is coming from, what your your uptime on your buffs are, all of which are very, very useful to know if you're trying to improve your DPS. See here, Endless Hail makes up 21.5% of our DPS. That's kind of why you want to maintain the dots on your bow bar as often as you can. See here, Poison Injection makes up about 10%. These are pretty on point. Hurricane, 89% uptime. That's pretty good. Minor Force, my Minor Force uptime was complete garbage during that parse. This comes from your rearming trap. You're going to want at least 85% uptime on Minor Force to get a good parse. So this 67% uptime it's pretty bad. Could explain why my DPS is so low. It's something I need to improve on. Brawler here, you can see here 62% uptime. It has a damage over time effect. So I kind of have to keep an eye on my Brawler, make sure I'm using it to kind of make sure I have that dot up at all times. Alright, so that's it for this build video. Hope this guide helps. Make sure to practice your rotations, work on your light attack weaving, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.